You hear that vibe, don't you? Well, maybe I just hear music in my mind all the time, so I'm hearing a vibe, and it always stays in my head. But the vibe that you're hearing tonight, that song is entitled "In Your Embrace," and every time you lock in with me inside the Quiet Storm, baby, it's always an embrace, a warm embrace, a sexy embrace. But I'm happy to say that we have company over tonight. This jazz cat, smooth jazz artist. Actually, he's more than smooth jazz. He's jazz, he's funk, he's R&B, he's soul. And it is a pleasure to finally get a moment of his time because he's always on the road. I think this guy has been traveling ever since the 90s. He doesn't come home very much, but I know his lady travels with him a lot too. But it's a pleasure and honor to be finally welcoming a cat who I finally admire, and I'm a strong fan of his work. But it's a pleasure to be welcomed inside of the man who has at least 25 albums to his credit, at least 40 number one hits, at least minimum. Brian Culbertson, come on in here, man, and sit down and have a seat. How you doing?
Hello, hello. Hey, what's up, Lenny?
How you feeling, man?
I'm feeling wonderful. Thank you.
I know that's right. I know that's right.
hmm
You know, I had a fond love for singing when I was
Okay.
at 9,
Okay.
but you started
Yeah.
instruments
Sure.
at 4. Now, I don't. Maybe it's a natural child's reaction just to bang on things,
Yeah.
but to my understanding, the way
Yeah.
they've been informing me that you have rhythmic tunes, like when you were hitting the pots and pans or whatever you got your
hmm
hands on,
Yep.
you had a rhythm to it, man. So where did this all come from? I mean, you were do you think your mom was listening to a lot of music when she was carrying you, and you just had that vibe?
Let me
Cor-
tell you. So I grew up in a house that was playing Earth, Wind, and Fire. The groups like Chicago, Blood, Sweat, and Tears,
Love it.
Cool and the Gang. I mean, so the '70s horn funk bands. That was in the house.
Wow.
Tower of Power, all that kind of stuff. So I grew up as a baby listening to this. So I had no choice, but that's where I was going. That's where I was going. Yeah,
And that's where you are.
exactly,
It's
exactly.
amazing. Children, I've heard, I don't have any children yet, but I've heard
Yeah,
that children hear music
yeah.
when the mother is actually carrying,
Right,
and
right, right.
and it's amazing, man. You are where you are supposed to be, with
Exactly.
no hesitation. Like, did you have another path beside music?
I
Were
only
you that
had one.
focused?
I had one little slight side tangent. For a while, I wanted to get into architecture, like civil engineering, and because my grandfather was a civil engineer, he built bridges,
Oh, deep.
and so for a while, I was like, "Oh, that was cool." I love drawing and drawing, shapes and architectures. But then the problem was, I took math class, and I was like, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't do this. Let me stick to music." Evidently, you got to know math to get into architecture. So I was like, "Well, I'll stick to the piano."
And you're doing so well, man. But you play more than piano. For those who are
Yeah.
listening to us tonight inside the Choir Storm, his name is Brian Culbertson. If you've never seen this cat perform, he's lit, as you would say today. He's
Oh,
electrifying.
wow.
You're no sitting down, stand still in one place kind of musician, man. You
No,
are all
no,
over the
no.
place.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
you just where did this all come from? Is this
Uh,
influential as well?
well, it is. It is. So I mentioned Earth, Wind, and Fire as my first influence when I
Yeah,
was a kid. They were actually the first concert that I ever saw. And so I'm a
look at that.
kid. I go to Six Flags, and as it turns out, Earth, Wind, and Fire was playing at Six Flags, and so I'm like, man, this is the kid's dream. Go on the roller coaster and then see Earth, Wind, and Fire. So I was blown away. This was back when Maurice was like, came
Wow.
in. He flew in, had a white cape, and there were pyramids. And I was like, what is, I thought it was like, Angel was flying in from, the sky. It was unbelievable. So,
Wow.
ever since I love theatrical stage shows. And, for a jazz artist like myself, I was like, okay, well, how can I tastefully, put that into my shows as well and, pay homage to the greats from back in the day. So that's what I'm always thinking about. So, bringing a great lighting show and a great stage show, as well
Yeah.
as great music. I love
Yeah.
how they put that all together.
Well,
Yeah.
you're the architect in that
Mm.
shaping, molding, perceptive. So
It,
you're still
exactly.
shaping
Exactly.
and developing things. His
I
name is
hear you.
Brian Culbertson. You're coming to New York City,
Yeah.
but
hmm
not to any venue. You're coming to the
Nope.
world famous
The venue.
Apollo Theater in Harlem,
That's right.
USA.
That's right.
If I'm not mistaken, this is your first time playing the Apollo.
It is, and honestly never even been there. Every time
Man,
we've played in Manhattan, it's been in Midtown or whatever. We played Beacon, Sony Hall, BB King's, various other places over the years, but never been to the Apollo. So let me when I say I'm excited, I'm
uh-huh.
legit like I couldn't believe it when we booked the show. I was like, what? So I've been telling everybody. So this has definitely been on my bucket list, and so excited to be here. Just the history alone, and to be able to be on that stage as so many others have been on. I'm over the moon, man.
And ladies, I gotta be honest with you. You often ask, "What's the background music I'm talking over?" Well, as surprising as this may sound, and Brian doesn't know this as well, it is a Brian Culbertson track. 9 times out of
Oh,
10, it's either "Let's Chill," it's either "Feel the Love," it's either "Lights Off," or "The Color of Love," "Sensuality." I go down the list, man. I mean,
wow.
so yeah, yeah, your vibe, whatever you're creating in that studio, works well for the Quiet Storm and creates a
Okay,
wonderful
I
ambiance
like
for
it.
me to kind of, musically massage these ladies.
I
And I
love
need
it.
to do that as often as possible.
Nice.
But
Sorry, I'm
if you,
moving around. I'm sitting on the couch in my
no,
hotel
look,
room.
speaking of moving around, you've been moving around, like I said, since the 90s.
That's
And
right. I mean, we don't stop.
I
You know.
see. I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
Now, the nice thing about it, which I want to know about the love story real quick,
Yeah.
because you're married like what, 26 years now?
Well, now 25 and a half. Get the
Okay.
half in there.
Well,
Almost
you know,
26.
okay, you counted every fraction of it. I got it. I got it.
Uh,
And your wife is a songstress.
well, yes, she actually grew up in the classical world, started on violin, was in orchestras. And then when we met at music school in Chicago, she
I
was an
love it.
opera major, singing opera,
Wow.
Puccini and Verdi and Mozart. So we met because she was friends with the bass player in the jazz band. And so he was trying to, slide in there. I was like, "Hey, who is that?" He's like, "Oh, that's my girl Michelle." I was like, "Can you introduce us?" And he's like, okay."
Wow.
And that's how that happened. But yeah, she's been a big part of all my music, ever since the beginning. We met right after my first record came out. We were still both in school, and we've written songs together. She sang a lot on my records here and there, and helped co-produce many of the tracks as well. So big part of all my music for sure. Her
But you
name's
guys,
Michelle.
Michelle. So,
Yeah,
but you guys were doing commercials.
that's true. Yeah, I got into jingles early
Yeah,
on too. The guy I was
big
studying
business.
with in school owned a jingle company, and he brought me in as a writer producer. And I was running all the studio gear too, because he actually wasn't a tech guy. He was kind of old school, just wrote out stuff by hand. So I'd have to interpret it all, turn it into make the tracks, and was working the multi-track recorder and all that stuff. So this is early on. I was like 21 when I was doing that stuff. So let me tell you that jingle business was a education musically, because
I'm sure it was.
every day it was a different style of music. We're going from full orchestra to hip hop, literally in one day. Doing
I
everything,
love it. Well, hey,
everything.
they found the right cat to kind of
It was
hang with both kind of genres
Yeah, it was
and
cool.
more.
Yeah,
Look,
yeah.
if you're just joining us tonight, Brian Culbertson is with me tonight, and he's coming to New York City. For those of you who have some time off, you may want to take a flight in to see him. He's going to be at the world famous, where stars are born and legends are made, the world famous Apollo Theater.
I
First
love it.
time playing, touching down in that section of Manhattan,
Yes.
and they will they will be electrified of what you bring to that stage. I don't think people understand what you're going to do when you touch down. I've seen you, so I know exactly what kind of energy.
I'm
I
gonna
know
do
you.
some things.
You are going to do some
We're gonna do
things.
some things.
But I just want to
Yeah.
know emotionally and psychologically, because
Yeah.
you have heard about the history of the
Yes.
Apollo. You knew
Yes.
that this is the stomping grounds and the
Of
starting point
course.
for so many legends
Yeah.
prior to you coming in there. Psychologically, emotionally, and now that you really angst to really get there,
Yeah.
how is that adrenaline is going to be a little different?
Well, I mean, of course, I always go back to one of my favorite videos to check out is James Brown when
Mm,
when both Michael Jackson and Prince jumped up on stage, and everybody was trying to show out. So I mean, it's just that venue. So if
Yeah,
you're not bringing your A game at the Apollo, you got to go home. You know what I'm saying? So
you really do.
I mean, I'm gonna be just really, really. I don't know what my emotions are going to be. I know there's going to be excitement. There's going to be nervousness. There's going to be sort of everything.
You
So
still get nervous at this stage of the game, though, Brian?
I absolutely do, because I think that's okay. And it's not like you're nervous, like, oh, maybe I'm going to mess up. It's more of like, okay, I hope the whole evening, goes over, and there's maybe no technical issues, because you never know what's going to happen on a live show, and so
Right.
you just hope for the best. But honestly, on the flip side, when things do, let's say, not go as planned, they sometimes are more memorable that way.
Yeah, man.
Do you
Yeah.
know?
Yes.
So you know what? At this point, I mean, 30 years in the game, I sort of roll with it and go with the flow. And if something happens, I'm like, you know what? Let's laugh at it and have a good time, and let us all be a part of it, as opposed to, oh my God, and then freak out and then run off stage. Nah,
Yeah. No, no, you
I don't
can't
have
do
time
that.
for that. No,
No, I know that. If you
no.
run off stage, you're going to jump in that audience and you're going to let them all feel that vibe,
There you
which is
go.
something that you might want to consider doing. But once you fill out the room, I'm excited that you're coming to Harlem. It's
Yes,
important that you touch down on that stage because,
yes.
look, I failed to mention, ladies and gentlemen, this cat is the recipient of an NAACP Image Award, Soul Train. So the brother got soul. He's
Well,
bringing
I was
soul.
to be clear, I was nominated. So just to be
Consideration.
in the consideration was amazing to me. To be in the world of jazz, mixing it with funk, soul, R&B. It's just the music I grew up listening to, and the fact that I'm able to play that music and be, in the mix is it's amazing to me, and beautiful. So I thank everybody for listening.
Do you still record a great majority of your songs with live band and studio when often possible? Because on
It's a
my
mix.
mind,
It's a mix,
okay,
really.
okay,
It is a mix. Sometimes I do it. It depends on what kind of vibe you're going for.
yeah,
The most recent project for me is the trilogy, as
yes,
you know. So that's why it's called the trilogy tour. So a lot of the trilogy was more intimate. So it was just me by myself, creating these tracks in the studio. And I would overdub a few other musicians, but the majority of it was me kind of crafting each thing. And it was happened over the last 3 years, so you know what was going on. So
hmm
it was kind of me sitting in the studio doing that thing. But now and then, when the timing is right and the vibe calls for it, sure, we have the whole band in there. So it just all depends on what you're going for.
I want to give the folks, Brian, just a little more taste of
Yeah.
the R&B with your smooth jazz in it.
Okay.
And
Sure.
you had another brother, another friend of
Yeah.
mine,
Yeah.
Noel Gordine,
Oh yes. Yes.
and that song that you did with him
Yeah.
was absolutely phenomenal. That was like around 12 years ago.
It was. It was interesting. That track, honestly, was originally going to be an interlude. It was 2 minutes long, and I had played some trumpet over the top of it, like muted trumpet, like kind of mild sound and stuff
Okay.
over the top of it. It was going to be a little 1.5, 2 minute interlude. But when I finished it, I was like, "Ooh, this vibe needs a little bit more." So that's when I had an idea to turn it into a vocal song, and then I got together with a lyricist, and then it wasn't until after the whole song was written I started hearing Noel on that particular track,
Wow.
because he had just released a song of his called "The River," and I heard it on the
Yep.
radio, and I was blown away by the sound of his voice. He had a unique vibe, and I was like, man, he got an old soul to
Mm,
him, and in his vocal phrasing and
you
in his
did.
tone, and so that's how that happened. So I called him up, and he came over, and we did the thing.
And I've got the cat who creates that kind of vibe, that kind of music. Brian Culbertson is with us tonight,
Hey, hey,
and he's
hey.
coming to the world famous Apollo Theater. I failed to mention the date, April 6th. April 6th. Tickets are on sale now. Look, I would suggest that you get a pair of tickets tonight. That way you can secure your seat because I know this cat is going to blow it away. If you know about his history, then you know what kind of vibe and what kind of energy he's bringing to the world famous Apollo Theater. I have the honors of presenting you that night. So it's going to
Wonderful.
be a great opportunity to do that. But you heard me talk a little bit about his personal life. He's been married for quite some time,
Yeah.
25
Yes.
and a half years. We
Yeah,
can't
you
forget about
got
the
it.
half, right? So, as a married man,
Yes.
and both have careers.
Yeah.
His
Yeah.
wife is a musician. His wife has a love for music just as much as he does. The
Yeah.
question is, does love exist without compromise? And Brian Culbertson would say,
Okay. I mean, anytime you're in any relationship, there is always compromise. There's because it's two individuals. If you don't compromise, you are no longer individuals. One person is going to be subdued or whatnot, whatever you're going to call it. So you have to stay individuals, and therefore there is compromise. And but that's what love is, don't you think? It's
"Hey,
appreciating each other for what each other has and what each other does and who each other is. Right?
no,
You know?
I figured it out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
love does not exist without compromise."
I mean, you got to compromise. Otherwise, it's one-sided, and that's not love.
No, no, it's not.
You know what I mean?
It's,
That
it's
that
called
that
selfishness.
sounds like the male domination of most of
Mhm.
history. Let's
Mm,
face it. You know what I'm saying?
wow. Yeah.
So
Hey, who would
there it
know better
is.
than a man who's been married 25 and a half years? Some people can't stay together 25 days, 25
Well,
weeks.
there you go, and there you have it. Ding, ding, ding.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yep, yep.
Man, I thank you for dropping in on the Quiet Storm tonight. We're excited for you. April 6th, the world famous Apollo Theater. This
Yes,
cat will grace the stage for the very first time in his illustrious career.
man. We are so excited. The whole band and crew were like, everybody's buzzing about the Apollo. Let me tell you. Let me tell you.
It's a wonderful thing. Anybody in your band from New York?
The only guy from New York is our bass player, but he's from Buffalo, so we don't count
Oh,
that.
that's wrong.
We say New York, but it's like way over there.
Well, look, we can't wait to see you, man. Safe
Yes.
travels. We know that you're going to be making a few stops before you get to us in
Yes.
New York.
Well, we got to get the show tight. So we're getting it. We're kicking it off in Providence, and then roll around, and then once we show up in New York, it's going to be good. It's going
And
to be
then
good.
for those of you who are listening online, he is coming to DC. He's coming to Texas as well. So check out his schedule. Where can they find you at?
BrianCulbertson.com.
There you go.
Easy, easy. You can get to all my social media, the tour dates, my YouTube, whatnot. Because I also do a lot of streaming on Friday nights when I'm in the studio.
Oh, wow.
So I've been doing this show for now 3 years, live from the
Wow.
studio. So you can check it
Wow.
out. The Hang, we call it the Hang because we were hanging out drinking wine. Hello, I got
Well,
like 300 episodes up on YouTube. It's nuts.
the Brian Culbertson in rare form on Friday nights on
Oh
YouTube.
yeah, hello.
Man, this has been a pleasure, man.
Thank you,
Come on
Lenny.
back anytime you're in town.
Will do. Appreciate you, and we'll
Brian
see you soon.
Culbertson,
See you soon.
inside of the Quiet Storm tonight, baby.